I wanted to see Preach's video about this housing update. As you can see, the housing situation, the housing news, has been a pretty gigantic news story for those of us that care about both FF14 and World of Warcraft. Those of us who have been, maybe like me, have bad memories of the garrison system in World of Warcraft, and also bad memories of the housing system in Final Fantasy, and hoping that in the future we can get something gooder from preferably both games. Okay, so huge WoW housing update. Blizzard coming for FF14. I would like to see this video. Let's get going. Love how every video title is about Blizzard taking shots at FF14. Well, you gotta have a hook in your title, right? You gotta do that, and that's kind of it's as of right now, because we don't have a lot of gameplay footage. We don't have any gameplay footage of the feature itself. I think it's the best way to get FF14 players' attention, because it very much is Blizzard taking shots and throwing shade at 14. With a housing system that's inspired by it, but perhaps an improvement upon it. At least that's what we can hope. All right, let's go.
Finally, more details on World of Warcraft.
Whoa.
We have finally more details on World of Warcraft's player housing. We've been waiting for this for nigh on 15 years, and it's finally coming. And not only that, they are taking direct shots at their competition. Let's take a look at what they've announced. Who could have expected this announcement to come out now?
Is that too loud, or is it okay, guys? Is that okay? Okay, it's good. Okay, just making sure. Just making sure.
Let's take a look at what they've announced. Who could have expected this announcement to come out now? We thought the teaser was enough until midnight, but no, we got plenty of details. And what cannot be ignored about this is the blatant and fragrant attack on Final Fantasy XIV directly. You might not have clocked it if you've not played 14, but goddamn, this one line alone is everything that people complain about in Final Fantasy XIV. But we've got to ask the question, why is player housing so important in the first place? Let's establish first why housing is important, because I don't think a lot of people realize the scope of this thing. Most of you are probably excited for player housing because you want to design your own masterpiece. You want to build your own homestead. You want to do all those things.
Right.
That is a huge part of it, for sure. However, the big thing about player housing is user-generated content. If you're playing retail War Within right now, you'll have noticed...
Okay, let me pause them right now, because I want to say that when it comes to player housing, I think Preach is an example of a type of player who might, had he not played FF14, might not give a shit about housing. But because he played FF14, he had seen the value the player housing can add to the game. And for him, I remember that was really shocking, actually, because keep in mind, Preach is a gamer. Okay? He is like, you know, a very high performance player, and he's the type of person that's more into, you know, big number, excelling in the raid setting, that kind of stuff. You wouldn't expect someone like him to see the value the player housing adds to the game, but I think FF14, his experience with it, showed him that with his Crawlers FC, seeing parties that happen in neighborhoods. Like, I had a block party with Preach, and I think that this is really cool now to see him looking at this feature from his point of his news perspective, and understanding the value that it can now add to WoW. I just want to say that, because I'm a person that obviously I like playing dress up. Okay, I like collecting things and looking cute, and I like Animal Crossing. Okay, obviously I'm gonna like housing, but I think Preach, a little bit more of a surprise that he sees the value in this.
The big thing about player housing is user-generated content. If you're playing retail War Within right now, you'll have no doubt been aware of massive amounts of complaints of like, there's just nothing to do.
Wait, did I miss something?
I'm just waiting to do all those things. That is a huge part of it, for sure. Okay. However, the big thing about player housing is user-generated content.
Yes.
If you're playing retail War Within right now, you'll have no doubt been aware of massive amounts of complaints of like, there's just nothing to do. I'm just waiting for things to do. And things like Plunderstorm, Classic, all those events are wildly more popular. We recently saw over 300,000 people watching Classic World of Warcraft duels and doing a Nixia. Like, people are definitely more invested in that
Wait.
than they are in what's happening in retail. This is the advantage of player housing. Having experienced it now for several years in other video games, not just FF14, I can tell you some of the wildest, most exciting moments come from players just being able to have fun and express themselves in silly ways. Being able to create boxing arenas, being able to create massive murder houses, things like that, are vital in order to just create your own fun. It sounds strange, but if World of Warcraft can embrace that and grow on this, they are calling it in their announcement an evergreen piece of content, then they are going to have so much endless fun that they don't have to make in the background.
Preach is also someone that does the Halloween haunted house judge contest, where he'll go around and people will submit entries for the scariest housing builds, and I've helped him judge several of these, and it is really absolutely incredible to see the creativity that players put out there with their unique builds. Like, I've seen some crazy intricate elaborate builds people have put together, and it is user generated content. It is infinite replayability that you get from this type of like content that gives the player autonomy and creating something brand new. Like, you just give them the tools that they need and they go crazy with it, right?
The biggest problem with MMO development is always the fact that it takes time and longer than it takes players to consume the content they make. Player housing, on the other hand, is a never-ending stream of content that allows the players to just have fun, regardless of what day it is, or regardless of what patch comes out. Neighborhoods are coming. This is massive. The fact that you could choose to be with...
I will say... content, right? How will they actually turn it into content? Because some people would say that decorating my house is content, but other people would say that it's not. That it's something that they wouldn't do. But from the blog post, it seemed to be implied that they would gamify it in some way and have different goals a neighborhood could work towards together. And I wonder, like, how are they going to encourage people to participate in this system that aren't just naturally motivated to, make the living room look nice?
Your friends, who will get the poor house, who will get the great house overlooking the cliffs of Ashara.
That's what I said.
All those kind of things are wonderful because it's a big vital part of what they're trying to achieve with their pillar system. They want community, and that's what housing is all about. One of the biggest drawbacks I see in other games that have housing is either no neighbors or neighbors that don't interact in any way because you don't know who's been picked up. The lack of a lottery is so vitally important because you have disappointment. You end up also with a big issue, which has happened in 14, of some people manipulating multiple accounts, being able to buy entire neighborhoods to themselves, and the limited space means people just don't end up getting housing. That is not...
God, do you remember the other day on the forums? I don't know if the person that was actually doing this, but somebody was on the forums and they're like, man, I've done hundreds of housing lotteries and I haven't won any, and I'm finally giving up because I just can't get it. I tried so many times, I'm never gonna get a house. And then someone commented after them and they're like, oh, well, you can live in one of my houses while you're still trying to get yours. I'm like, huh? One of yours? Oh, how generous of you. That's very cool. That's a very kind offer.
Manipulating multiple accounts, being able to buy entire neighborhoods to themselves, and the limited space means people just don't end up getting housing. That is not going to be the case in...
But wait a second. Wouldn't it be better to stay in one of his houses? Because then presumably he'd be the one paying rent. No, because you still have to pay rent. Yeah, you would still have to pay. You just wouldn't have to go inside. Never mind. It's stupid. It's sad.
Entire neighborhoods to themselves, and the limited space means people just don't end up getting housing.
Have you ever heard one of these people defend themselves, by the way? That has bought up an entire ward? They'll say things like, oh, well, the reason that I have bought up the entire ward is because I know how to decorate better. And so if I have control over the entire ward, I can make it all look really nice. And we're not going to have any houses in it that are like not fitting the aesthetic because I'll be in control of all of it. So really, you need to have people that actually care about decorating, controlling the whole ward. I think that I'm providing a service to the community because you'll be able to go into my whole, it'll be like a city you can visit owned by me. Literally, it's what people say.
That is not going to be the case in World of Warcraft. What we do want to see, though, without getting so excited and so mind blown, is what is this construction going to look like?
Yes.
One of their pillars is, it doesn't matter if you've had 3D experience, you should be able to pick up and play this system very, very simply. This is a big ask. It's not easy. Are they going to draw inspiration from, say, WildStar? WildStar allowed you to take any item in the game and stretch it, grow it, shrink it, do whatever you want. So
that would be awesome.
That small log that you found on the floor could be extended to be a huge tree trunk that may have been felled in a forest. Things like that. Or will they go with a more Guild Wars 2 style, where there's individual areas you can still grow and stretch things and position where you want, but there are limitations on what you can do. It's entirely up to them where they're going to go, but right now with this preview, imagination is the biggest thing we're looking for. If we look at the preview video they did, it was all very, very dense. We had tons and tons and tons of items all filling that area, which could lead to one of their potential problems. Guys, what I'm about to say is not me being like, oh, it's going to be like that. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm actually very, very excited for this. But there are always potential pitfalls, and we'll have to see if this is how it plays out here. World of Warcraft has always tried to stay within its thematic bubble. It likes the idea that you are a horde character, therefore player housing may be constricted to a horde environment. So sure, we might see orcish houses, and in fact in the concept art you'll see they're very orcish Durator style houses, and we might see Forsaken getting their things, and the Trolls getting their things, and the Taurens, etc. However, if I was to levy a piece of advice towards Blizz, and some of you might disagree with this, which is why I'm saying it's not a big negative, letting people outside of the constraints of that theme is a really big deal when it comes to player housing.
I think they will, because it means that they'll be able to sell more different kinds of exteriors on the shop, right? So in this situation where they can sell housing items on the shop, it doesn't make sense to constrain it. That's how you know that it won't be constrained. By the way, though, even if it was, you can get, like, for example, what did they say? Horde houses only in the Horde zone and Alliance houses only in the Alliance. It's fine because you can buy the Alliance house in Elwyn and then your Horde, all your characters can use that house if you want, as if it was theirs. So I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Let me show you some examples of this.
In
14 and in other games, we have had people do things like housing competitions. Take a look at what was allowed to be done because people could break out of those constraints. We had people...
Okay. Allowed to be done is a stretch in FF14. Because, keep in mind, that a lot of the housing builds that you see in 14 were done with third-party tools. Because it's much easier to do it with third-party tools than with the systems, with the tools that the game gives you, which are extremely pain in the ass to work with. And, so, like, things that are glitched together, or these really unique, crazy, intricate builds, typically, people are using the third-party tools to make those. So those are not allowed, but people do use that. Anyways.
Recreate Resident Evil in the game. We had people recreate hospitals within the game. We had people
Hey,
recreate
it's Zepla. I was here. I was helping judge that. It's not me. I was there.
arenas, battle arenas, boxing arenas. We had nightclubs, discos, all these kinds of things happening.
I'm in this video too. Man, I've been sneaky lately. Yesterday we watched a Bellular video and I was in it. Today I've been Preach's video, but I'm sneaking in. There she is. That's Zepla right here.
All these kinds of things happen.
Yeah. I'm on the telly.
All because people were allowed to bend that thematic scope a little bit outside of what the actual game's main story entails. However, it's not that far out. World of Warcraft has all these things. In Legion, we've had spaceships, technology, aliens crash landing. All those things exist within the game. Goblin tech is all there.
Yeah.
So please, for the love of God, in my opinion, allow people to bend out of that a little bit. If people want to have a crazy, weird gingerbread house or a space house, let them do that.
They will.
If they want that,
they'll charge you to do that.
Classically designed style, which also exists, allow them to do that. But the flexibility should be there to create the perfect troll camp all the way to a glorious laboratory or observatory or whatever it is that they feel fits their character. Because one of the big things they're trying to sell here is the ability for players to roleplay. Now, I know a lot of people look down on roleplay. I can tell you way more people enjoy it than we'll let on, especially when it's a one-off. They're going to this roleplay event to have fun with. I was like you as well.
One night stand.
I was a massive skeptic until I went and did it for a fun night. And it was amazing. It was incredible. When you get a bunch of players who all want to join in, they have fun, they create transmogs around this environment, and they just go for wild for a night, maybe do it again 6 months later. It's an incredible experience. But in order to achieve that, creativity is everything. They want this user-generated content. Creativity. Let people bend the rules. The last thing we want is everybody to be like, oh, you have your cool chair over here. I have mine over here. And further to those concerns, though,
with the roleplay thing, I think that I think that if you are able to just wander around some of these neighborhoods and see it going on organically, then you might be a little bit more interested in it happening. But also, the roleplay, I imagine, would mostly be happening on roleplay servers in World of Warcraft. Remember that in WoW, certain servers are designated for roleplay, unlike in FF14, we're just kind of loosey-goosey. So if you are a role player, it might be good to, hop onto a roleplay server, and there's going to be some more robust features in the player housing to help facilitate the roleplay that you do. I say that because, as someone that's been roleplaying since 2004 in World of Warcraft, if you try to roleplay on a PvP server or a normal server, you could be in for a bad time. There are people that might not understand what you're doing and might not like it and might try to grief you. But if you're on a roleplay server, you can report them anytime for harassment. But if you're thinking about doing roleplay and you're coming from FF14, join a roleplay server. I play on only roleplay servers personally. Servers don't really matter so much anymore, but for this one thing, I think it will matter. So that's something to think about if you're coming in.
There's a couple of lines in here we should take note of, such as the working together and collecting rewards as a neighborhood or a community. Now, we know you can have public servers where you'll just join randoms and you can have your own communities, but what does working together mean? Obviously, this gives rise to the fears that we had during garrisons. Practicality. Are we going to have farms in there? Are we going to have mining and stuff in there? Which I personally believe won't happen.
Oh
I think
God.
they learnt their lesson from garrisons, that having this kind of practical usable approach inside closed off instanced areas just isn't healthy for the game as a whole. They do want people around the city, so I'm not too worried about it. What I suspect
What the fuck is going on?
this is you can work together.
I'm sorry. This is from a long time ago, huh?
To the fears that we had during garrisons. Practicality. Are we going to have farms in there? Are we going to have mining and stuff in there? Which I personally believe won't happen. I think they learned their lesson from garrisons, that having this kind of practical, usable approach inside closed off instanced areas just isn't healthy for the game as a whole. They do want people around the city, so I'm not too worried.
Does Preach put ketchup on to potato chips? Is that a Pringle that he put ketchup on?
About it. Well, I suspect this
Oh my god, he did. Oh my god, he did. What the fuck?
To create big decorations or some sort of facilities within there that are just for fun or for cosmetic purposes. Personally, I would really like it if there are essentially like meth neighborhoods that haven't worked together and they haven't got like a working sewage system or anything like that. It's a complete ghetto, all the way to the top tier space age living the dream sort of things that you might get if you do work together and progress your area. But it's something we're going to keep
like I said in my video, I'd like to make a big goblin trash heap to live in.
An eye out on these things. Having said all that, absolutely not being negative on this. This is way more than I ever expected from them. Whenever I've managed to speak to the devs on site about player housing, someone's been, this must have been years in the making, because this is a huge bolt onto the game that is going to allow users to create their own content. And goddamn, can I tell you, from some of you who've never stepped foot outside of the bounds of Azeroth, when you experience this, when you understand what it's like to have a real community feel, which, let's be honest, guys, has been lacking in retail World of Warcraft for such a long time and is one of the main draws to people playing the classic versions where community and your player mattered, not just your class. This is a hugely exciting moment for World of Warcraft and risks, once again, World of Warcraft just becoming the absolute most dominant MMO that's going to exist for the next 10 years. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll come back to you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, check out a display.
I wonder if Mike thinks that this is going to inspire FF14 to make some positive changes to their housing, because he's a newer player than me, and the older player you are, usually the more jaded you become. But I wonder if he's more optimistic that they're actually going to like figure it out, find a way to get the freaking infinitely scalable wards. Just keep adding the damn wards. I don't know how, or figure out a way to do the cross DC housing, add some more cross DC shit. Like, I don't know what you gotta do. Add instance housing. Let me put in indoor furniture into the island. Figure something out. Any solution at all. Something, work on it. Maybe add something new to housing, since you haven't done that for 9 years already. I don't think it's that hard to ask, but apparently it is. Words of Warcraft. World of Wordscraft. That's what we got coming. It is no exaggeration to say this is one of the biggest moments in MMORPG history, though. I completely agree. That's why I said in my video, this is like the biggest bombshell news of player housing ever, because this is a technology that we believed was impossible. Always thought we had to pick between ward and a neighborhood vibe or instance housing. Always thought it was one or the other. But it's not. Don't let your dreams be memes. It's happening. Yes. I'm excited. You must be really jaded, huh? Actually, no. In terms of people that are jaded, I am not the most jaded one. But I'm also, there's a difference between optimism and foolishness. Okay, you need to be able to to see that for yourself. If someone keeps saying that they're going to improve something, but then they never do that, eventually you have to realize that it ain't happening. Okay, last time that they updated housing was literally 9 years ago. So I want to hope. I want to do that. But you got to give me something to work with, right? There's no reason to believe that housing will change in FF14, besides them doing the exact same thing that they always did, which was add new wards, add new districts, which is a band-aid, and it's a short-term thing. It doesn't really solve anything. Like, this is... At a certain point, you gotta realize that expecting things to change is foolish and not based on anything real at all. I would say I'm a very optimistic person and overall, but you know, let's not be stupid either.